morning, Bimblers, and you join me here outside Piccadilly Station in Manchester, and I think it's safe to say that the heat wave is over, because I've been sat in there for about half an hour waiting for it to stop raining. But today we're having a little bimble down the Ashton Canal, so let's stop messing about and bimble. Let's bimble. This is the Ashton Canal, and it stretches for 6 miles and goes through 18 different locks, and as the name suggests, it goes all the way from Ashton-under-Lyne to the back of Manchester Piccadilly Station in Manchester city centre. It was completed in 1796, and the idea was to get coal from Oldham and Ashton into the centre of Manchester to offer a bit of competition to all the coal mines that were bringing coal down the Bridgewater Canal, you know, from Worsley Delph or from the Bonk in Goulburn. Before they built the canal, they were bringing the coal down in barges along the River Medlock, which was a bit of a nightmare, so they needed a canal, and they picked a Benjamin Outram to be the man that built it. He was famous for building the Cromford Canal in Derby, and the Derby Canal in Derby, and the Nottingham Canal near Derby. But it wasn't just canals that he built. He built some of the first railways when they were called tramways, and they went on those L-shaped tracks. He's actually credited to be the first person to build a railway tunnel along his Butterley gangway near the Christ's Tram Museum. And his big claim to fame canal-wise was he was one of the first people to build an aqueduct out of cast iron. That was on the Derby Canal. And it's actually the oldest cast iron aqueduct that's still navigable. He built another aqueduct here on the Ashton Canal, and it's a Bobby Dazzler. He built the Store Street Aqueduct, which is just behind me, and it was the first heavily skewed archway bridge to ever be built. The archway that goes underneath the aqueduct is at a 45-degree angle, and up until then they'd only ever managed to get 15 degrees. And if you look around Manchester today, you can see a lot of the railway viaducts also use that same design, and they have heavily skewed archways underneath them, all because of Benjamin Outram.
I made a bold decision, no different from the time before, brimming with the sun's condition, swept overboard. I'm with the wind's incision, cutting through, I'm overjoyed, flowing with the storm's collision, the perfect choice. Moods can be lifted the brighter the day. You take the blue skies and I'll take the grey. If it's up to the weather, you know that I surely would say she loves them. You can love the warm and that's okay. You can love the sun in every way. You can love the breeze and blow away. She loves the rain. She loves them. She loves the rain.
You join me here at the Saxon Street Gasworks, in front of what's called a gas holder, or as I would call it, a gasometer. It's what most people in the UK call a gasometer, and it's what a man called William Murdoch would have called it too. He was the man that invented the gas lamp, and he coined the phrase gasometer, and it was quite controversial in the gas world, because people who are experts in gas wouldn't call it a gasometer, because there's no meter. It's a gas holder or a gas vessel. There's no meter involved. And just to get on their nerves, the Ordnance Survey maps call them gasometers as well. But if you were a BBC News reader, you would call it a gas holder, to be prim and correct. They're a relic of the past anyway now. The idea of them is a bit like a diving bell, or when you hold a glass under the water when you're doing the washing up. Gas was stored in a giant telescopic container suspended over a body of water so that the gas wouldn't escape. And they used to store natural gas and also something called town gas. Town gas was made from coal, and before they found all the natural gas in the North Sea, that's what everyone's house was running on, town gas. And it was finding all that gas in the North Sea that rendered the gasometer useless, because the gas could be stored in the pipes underground and it could be pumped straight from the source in the middle of the North Sea somewhere. This gasometer at the Saxon Street Gasworks is set to be demolished, and there's actually planning permission in place to build something else here. But there are lots of gasometers all around the UK which are listed structures, and even some that have been incorporated in new flats and things like that. Some of them are very ornate and from the Victorian era. There's another gasometer in a gasworks just round the corner called the Bradford Gasworks, and they're set to be demolished as well. But you can't keep everything, can you? Where would you put it?
Blue skies and I'll take the grey. It's up to the weather, you know that I surely would say. She loves that. You can love the warm, that's okay. You can love the sun in every way. You can love the breeze and blow away. She loves the rain. She loves that. She loves the rain.
This is Phillips Park, and it's named after a Mark Phillips, who was the MP for the Liberal Party here in Manchester between 1832 and 1847. It's down to him that Manchester got the world's first free library, the Chetham's Library. He also helped to start the Lancashire Public School Association, which in turn helped to make education free across the UK. He was a member of the Anti-Corn Law League. The Corn Laws were a set of import duties on foreign corn. Corn being brought over from America had to be sold at the same price as corn being grown in the UK, which on the surface seems like a good idea. But what it meant was the price of corn went up and up and up. The people that owned the land that the corn was grown on could basically charge whatever rent they wanted, and that rent was then put onto the person buying the corn. And what it meant for the working class families was that they couldn't afford to buy flour, which meant they couldn't bake bread, and they couldn't afford to go and buy a loaf from the shop. In 1846 the laws were repealed, and that's thanks to Mark Phillips, and also my hero, Sir Peter Hesker Fleetwood. Good on those two chaps. The last most important thing MP Mark Phillips did for Manchester was he donated £1,000 to the council. That would have been about £80,000 in today's money. And he donated that money so the council would build parks. And the idea of it was that all the classes would mix together. The upper class people could promenade around, but so could the working class people. Next door to Phillips Park was Phillips Park Cemetery, and that was opened in 1866, and it was Manchester's first municipal cemetery. And it was no doubt the legacy of Mark Phillips, an equal opportunity cemetery that everyone could be buried in, whether you were rich or poor. In between the cemetery and the park runs the River Medlock. Well, one day in August 1872, you could have got as many coal barges down the Medlock as you would have liked. They had a biblical storm, and the Medlock burst its banks, and in turn it eroded the banks of the cemetery, in particular the Roman Catholic section of the cemetery. And on that day, 76 coffins set sail down the River Medlock. One of them got 3 miles away. But talking about setting sail, we should set sail down the Ashton Canal to our penultimate portage. Let's bimble.
Maybe it didn't work at the time, maybe it never did. A mistake that made the distance, or a trying way to live. Maybe it's the time that you grabbed at my arms and electricity flowed from my shoulders to palms in a white hot glow, leaving white cold scars left bare and unshowed just to prove they were ours. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it didn't work at the time, maybe it never did. A novelty improvement left lonely as it gives. Or maybe it's the time that you closed both your eyes and you pouted your lips as you waited for mine in the soft red glow of your soft cold arms. Serotonin burnt holes through my veins to my heart. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is.
You join me in a place called Fairfield, which is part of a bigger place called Droylsden. And Fairfield and Droylsden were once famous for weaving fabric, which is no great surprise because we're right near to Manchester. But the fabric they were famous for weaving here in Fairfield was the terry towel. You may associate the terry towel with babies' nappies and great big safety pins. Well, in fact, any towel that you see today is basically a terry towel. One of the biggest customers was Queen Victoria, and she didn't wear nappies as far as I'm aware. The terry towel was the world's first machine woven towel, and it was made by W.M. Christie & Sons from 1851 onwards. It was a Henry Christie that went on his holidays to Turkey, and he brought back a towel which they figured out how to weave on a machine, and the rest is history. The mill was knocked down in the 1980s and it was replaced by a big Tesco's, but I'm sure inside that Tesco's they have some terry towels. Fairfield is also home to a community of the Moravian church. They're a reformed church that started in 1450 in the Czech Republic, or Bohemia as it was known then. They were Protestant before Protestant was even a thing. Proto-Protestant. What they wanted was for the Bible to be wrote in their own language instead of in Latin, and that would mean anyone could give the sermons, or anyone could read from the Bible in church, or if you were rich enough you could own your own Bible and be able to read it without knowing Latin. Apparently they do a lot of missionary work, and they try not to be greedy, and they remain pious, and they're pacifists. So they sound like quite a nice bunch of lads. But I worship only one God, and that is the God of Bimble. And he's telling me that we need to get to the end of the Ashton Canal. So let's bimble.
Soft red glow of your soft cold arms. Serotonin burnt holes through my veins to my heart. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it's the time that I wanted to say that my limbs won't move more than 2 feet away from your day glow side luminescent sparks. I could burst into flames from one beat from your heart. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is. And I quite like how it is.
Well, Bimblers, we reach Portland Basin, which is officially the end of the Ashton Canal. If we carry on that way, we go onto the Huddersfield Narrow Canal. And if we turn right and go that way, we get onto the Peak Forest Canal. Both canals also designed and built by Benjamin Outram. But both canals for different Bimbles. I'm all canaled out. I'm fed up of cobbles. And I'm ready for home. And I've got to get there, back down the canal.